All right, folks. Welcome back to the John Gomez Show. Yours truly, John Gomez, with you. As you know, we kick it off every single day, Monday through Friday at noon to 2. Lunch with Gomez on 1039 LI News Radio. You can follow us wherever you go, wherever you are. At linewsradio.com, just click on the Listen Live link. Also, if you care to hop on board, write this number down. 631-451-1039 is the number to make contact. 451-1039. And you can always email me, Gomez, Gomez, at linewsradio.com. Joining us on the LI News Newsmaker line is New York GOP spokesperson David Laska. David, welcome aboard. How are you?
Good to be with you, John. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Well, first off, let's take one at a time here. There was a release out by Brookhaven GOP Chairman Jesse Garcia last week, and I talked about it briefly. I just basically read the press release. Now, come Monday morning, I get one from Chairman Cox and from the New York GOP, which, in my opinion, not to belittle what Garcia says, but this certainly gives it a lot more credence. And this is in relation to Assemblyman Ed Hennessey, who's running for re-election this year. Apparently, it says here, Ed Hennessey, the Democratic Assemblyman representing Long Island's 3rd Assembly District, has once again let a property tax payment deadline roll by without paying off his staggering amount of past due taxes. David, could you fill us in with this? I'm assuming that you guys up there in Albany and the New York State GOP did their homework on this.
Absolutely. I mean, John, I tell you, you can't make this stuff up. You've got a Democratic Assemblyman, Ed Hennessey, we call him Deadbeat Ed, who goes to Albany and votes in lockstep with Shelley Silver and Assembly Democrats to raise taxes on New Yorkers, who are already the most taxed people in America, and then he goes home and he doesn't pay his own property taxes. So Ed Hennessey has failed to pay property taxes for the property where his law office is located. That's on William Floyd Parkway in Shirley. For not only all of 2013, but thus far in 2014 too. Including penalties and interests, Hennessey's unpaid property tax bill has ballooned to over $20,000. This is absurd. This guy's voting to raise taxes on New Yorkers while at the same time not paying the taxes that he owes. So Jesse Garcia, the Brookhaven Republican chairman, who's a phenomenal chairman down in Brookhaven, back in April said, look, he's got to pay up or he's got to leave the assembly. This is totally inappropriate. So now June 1st was another deadline that passed for him to pay a portion of that tax bill. He didn't pay it. So now the state party chairman, Ed Cox, has waded in as well. We put out a joint release with Chairman Garcia this morning that said, look, if you can't afford your tax bill to the taxpayer, then you're not going to take home a paycheck from the taxpayer. Resign your office, go work in the private sector, collect a little more money, pay your bill, and then if you're on a run for office, let's talk. But if you owe the taxpayer money, you absolutely cannot be collecting a paycheck from the taxpayer. This is totally inappropriate. It's disgusting on the part of Ed Hennessey.
You know, another item that Ed Hennessey faces is Common Core, as in all the assemblymen out here will have to face, any sitting assemblyman. There's two that have been on the front lines. One of them is Assemblyman Ed Ra, the 21st District here on Long Island. Also Al Graff here on Long Island. They've kind of spearheaded the efforts to stop Common Core, at least stop it in its tracks until they get a proper implementation process in play. And I believe, and this is at best my memory has for me, is that Ed Hennessey, in an attempt when Assemblyman Ra was trying to put up a bill or an amendment to a bill to essentially stop Common Core in its tracks, Ed Hennessey failed initially to give him support. He, again, like you say, he votes lock, stock, and barrel with Assemblyman Silver. But then in the midnight hour, he comes around and says, hey, Ed, can I be a co-sponsor of your bill or something? Yep. So when Ed Ron needs the support, and this goes for Engelbright as well and Thiel as well. I mean, Engelbright and Thiel not so much as Hennessey, But in my opinion, when they're campaigning this year and this summer, everybody, any audience that they face is going to hit them with Common Core. Every single one of them. And every single assemblyman or assemblywoman is going to want to be able to stand there at the podium and say, I did everything I possibly could to stop Common Core. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at the paper trail, it looks like they supported efforts of Assemblyman Raz to stop it. But in reality, when you look at a fact check situation, a play-by-play, if you will, they didn't necessarily give him the support that he really needed.
No, of course not. It's smoke and mirrors in an election year, and I don't think Long Islanders are going to buy it. Look, if Long Island's parents, Long Island's family want a member of the Assembly who will fight against Common Core, then voters in Ed Hennessy's district ought to elect Dean Murray, as they did a few years ago. We need more Republicans in the Assembly, and look, here's why that's such an important seat, too. I mean, New York, 2-1 Democrat to Republican. The Democrats have over 100 seats in the Assembly. It's a 150-member body. We're not going to win back the Assembly this year. But what we could do is pick up 51 seats. We're in the mid to low 40s now. There are a couple of vacancies. But if we get 51 seats, that's enough to uphold a governor's veto. So when we're working with Governor Rob Astorino next year, then Dean Murray and a Republican, what we call a super minority of at least 51 seats in the Assembly, will be able to uphold his veto, and really it'll be a great check and balance to Shelley Silver and the corrupt Albany Democrats.
Hey, David Laska, how many seats did you say we'd have to pay? Assuming all the Republican assemblymen win, and assemblywomen or men win, how many do we have to pick up to make the 51?
We need there are a couple of vacancies, so okay. It changes here and there, but it's about probably about 8 seats. It could be a bit fewer, but okay. in that neighborhood.
So 8 to 10 seats.
6 to 9,
8 to 10 seats. So I mean, Hennessy's definitely vulnerable in my opinion. Thiel and Engelbright, I don't know how vulnerable they are, and I don't even know who their challengers are, quite frankly. And I think as far as the Senate is concerned, that. You know, David, the more you mention that, and folks, please pay attention to this, because what we hear on the streets typically, David, is how Republicans need to maintain their strength in the Senate. When in reality, David, we don't have the majority in the Senate. Of course, they've got that, I forget what an independent Democrat
the
caucus.
IDC.
Yeah, they have that, but, the reality is we don't have the majority. So, and quite frankly, just to speak, numbers here, David, you're going to have some tough Senate battles here on Long Island. Namely, Martin's is going to be a tough one. Hannon's going to be a tough one. You've got Fuschillo, who stepped down. It's going to be tough to beat Denenberg. I'm telling you right now. So in order to offset any possible loss in the Senate, we need those 10 other seats in the Assembly, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And, look, the New York City suburbs are going to be ground zero in this election, both in terms of maintaining some leadership role in the Senate. I think we'll retake it outright. I think this is going to be a great Republican year, but also winning our statewide seats. I mean, upstate is going to come out big for Republicans. New York City always comes out big for Democrats. It'll be the suburbs of Long Island and Westchester and Rockland County where this election will be decided. And that's why the people who are listening to you right now, John, are so important. Getting out as many boots on the ground for Dean Murray, for our Republican Assembly and Senate candidates, for Rob Astorino. The New York City suburbs are ground zero where this election is going to be played out. And just that cannot be overstated. Every
political expert that I've spoken to and I've had on the program, they're not even looking at New York City. And quite frankly, I think it's not only typically it's a wise strategic move, but I don't think they're going to be coming out for Cuomo in New York City. I just think they're going to stay at home.
No, absolutely. I mean, the national liberal media have been bashing Andrew Cuomo for a couple of years now. Chris Hayes on MSNBC beats the tar out of him, and Bill de Blasio has bucked him a couple of times. But that brings up a really interesting point. Andrew Cuomo at the Working Families Party convention a couple of weeks ago did something really, really awful. He was poised to possibly lose the endorsement of the radical far-left Working Families Party. So he struck an 11th-hour deal. Call it a deal, maybe call it a bribe, facilitated by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, where he said, look, I'm going to come out and support public campaign finance statewide for the first time, and I'm going to help create a $10 million slush fund to elect Democrats to the state Senate. if you, the Working Families Party, give me your endorsement. Now, according to New York State Penal Code, John, that just might be a bribe. So Ed Cox has called on the proper authorities to investigate that. But one way or another, what's not in question, there's a question of bribery, but what's not in question is the fact that Andrew Cuomo acted in an unethical, cynical manner and sold out his political soul to Bill de Blasio and the New York City far left. And I think that's going to come back to hurt him upstate. Because at the end of the day, as you said, New York City's not going to come out in big, enthusiastic numbers for Andrew Cuomo. He's trying to electioneer this in 2014, a few months away from Election Day. I don't think it's going to work. I think this just exposes him for the sort of transactional, backroom deal politician he is. He's unprincipled. He's untrustworthy. And I think what he did at the Working Families Party convention really shows that no one can trust this guy, Andrew Cuomo.
And David Laska, that's on top of the fact of what he did with the Moreland Commission. I mean, this is a typical Andrew Cuomo play. He touts one thing and plays another. It's incredible how he touts about getting rid of and weeding out and combing through all the corruption in Albany. But then in the Moreland Commission, we find out, and his arrogance shows through, he not only appointed everybody, but he really was the person who commandeered, it seems as though, he commandeered in a large part the investigations, and he had some control over it, and he's not shy about admitting it. And
Absolutely.
then in the midnight hour again, he just shuts it down.
And Andrew Cuomo corrupted his own corruption commission by controlling it from behind the scenes. I mean, think about that. How absurd is that? Here's a governor who says, I'm going to weed out corruption. He launches this massive commission, but behind the scenes actually stopped targets he stopped subpoenas from going to people who had donated to him.
Yep.
I mean, think about that. How corrupt is that? This is supposed to be his commission on corruption. I mean, there's a reason that New York is the laughingstock of America when it comes to political corruption, and it's things like that. It's the governor misusing this Moreland Commission as a fishing expedition at legitimate political opposition of his, and then quashing it once he's gotten what he wants to out of legislators. It's about the governor accepting one thing from the Working Families Party while then going around and doing the opposite. No one can trust this governor. No one can trust this party when it comes to governing in Albany, and I think we're ready for a change in New York. What's
interesting, David Laska, and folks, if you're just joining us, I've got David Laska, spokesperson for the New York GOP up in Albany. Another interesting point here, David, is there was a big article in Newsday over the weekend written by none other than Rick Brand talking about the hope for a Cuomo boost by some of the contenders, the Democrat contenders for Senate, such as Dennenberg, as I mentioned before, Adrian Esposito here in the 3rd Senatorial District. Neither of them, they're both hopeful. They're both thinking that something's going to happen. But I think they know Cuomo just like we know Cuomo and everybody else knows Cuomo, is that his words don't really mean much. His words don't pack a punch.
Absolutely. Andrew Cuomo, at the end of the day, will do what's right for one thing, and that's Andrew Cuomo. He's not going to do what's right for the Democrats. He's not going to do what's right for the Working Families Party. And unfortunately, he's not going to do what's right for New York State, which is what he should have been doing for the last 4 years. He'll do what's in his own political interest. You know, it was so funny to see after he pledged openly to give $10 million to create a slush fund for Democratic state Senate candidates, and said for the first time in his administration that he now supports Democratic takeover of the state Senate. Not 3 days later, there he was in upstate New York. He had been downstate. There he was in upstate New York saying, I'm so proud of my bipartisan record of working with Senate Republicans, that we've done great things with this bipartisan Senate coalition. Well, Governor, which is it? How stupid do you think we are? Now, 3 days prior, he had been saying it's about the Democrats in the state Senate to get the Working Families Party endorsement. And then once he had it, he goes to upstate New York, to Rochester, to Buffalo, and he's saying, well, we're going to work with Republicans in the state Senate. Governor, how can anybody trust you when 3 days later you flip-flop 180 degrees? Now, the Working Families Party gets what they deserve. If they think they were going to deal with Cuomo in good faith, lots of luck to him. This is a governor who doesn't believe in good faith. He believes in doing what's right by him, and that's why New Yorkers don't have a lot of trust for him.
Hey, David, let me ask you this. I get this question all the time whenever somebody comes on to talk about the Republican support and Astorino and so forth. A lot of people, a lot of listeners question Dean Skelos' true support for Rob Astorino. Even in a recent article in Newsday last week, he was, it just wasn't strong. It wasn't full of enthusiasm. It's, the tale of two cities, the tale of two Cuomos, but it's almost as if, and this is just us on the street reading, body language and so forth. It's almost as if Cuomo relies on Skelos and Skelos kind of relies on Cuomo. Can you give us some reassurance that Dean Skelos is strongly behind Rob Astorino?
Absolutely, and don't take my word for it, John. He said it himself. He came to our convention, Senator Skelos, and said on our stage, right before Rob came out, he endorsed Rob. He says he supports Rob. He doesn't want there to be any question about that. Absolutely, Dean Skelos supports Rob Astorino 100%. And look, you have to give some thought to the fact that our state legislators do have to work with Andrew Cuomo in the sense that they have to govern with him. They have to work together. Now it's campaign season, and now all Republicans, we're all on the same page. Our entire statewide, our entire slate of statewide candidates were nominated and unanimously. We're on the same page. Every Republican from Long Island to Buffalo, every place in between. Yes, Dean Skelos and the entire Republican Party are marching in lockstep behind Rob Astorino, Chris Moss, Bob Antonacci, and John Cahill.
Well, that's good to hear. It's good words. I just, would like to see some more support down here on Long Island, I'd venture to say. And like we've said on this program, you've said it when I was met with you up in Westchester at the convention, that Long Island is a major battleground for the governor's race.
Without a doubt. Long Island and the New York City suburbs are where this race will be decided. And Mike Gormley of Newsday had a great piece going back a couple of months ago, but a great piece once the race started taking shape that essentially made that point. Look, New York City's not going to come out huge. Upstate will come out bigger. It's going to be Rockland County, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Suffolk, and Nassau, where this race is really going to play out. Hey. You guys down there on Long Island, you're in the trenches, you're on the front lines, and we need all of your help to get Dean Murray elected, to get all of our Republican legislator candidates elected, as well as our entire ticket of statewide candidates, including Rob Astorino.
All right, David. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I did put a call into Ed Hennessey this morning. He was a little hesitant about joining me. He couldn't join me today.
Lots of luck.
We'll see what happens. He's been on before, so we'll see if he's got anything to say. David, once again, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you. Do you travel with Astorino when he comes around, when he does state tours, or you're basically in Albany?
I travel around the state, but I travel with my boss, Ed Cox. Rob has his own able staff. I go around with Ed.
Very good. All right, David, give my best to the chairman.
Will do.